of the most common questions that I get from parents is why don't we use flashcards to teach our students math facts anymore? Why don't we just memorize our math facts? That idea of memorization or memorization of facts and the fact that we don't want them to memorize it is a misconception. We do want students to become fluent with their facts. Fluency means to have a flow. Similar to language, when we talk about a student having fluency in language, their language flows. However, one thing to keep in mind with fluency is that it is not meant to come at the expense of understanding, but as an outcome of the progression of learning and sufficient practice. Here you can see the fluency standards as determined by the Common Core State standards. How do we help students become fluent with facts without using traditional methods such as flashcards? Teaching students to structure with numbers is key to this success. So why don't we use flashcards to teach students fluency with facts? Flashcards teach students that each problem is an isolated fact, when in reality, they are interconnected. Let's take 9 plus 8 as an example. 9 plus 8 isn't just 9 plus 8. It's 9, and I can break apart the 8 to think of it as 1 and 7. That makes me have an easier problem. Or it's 8 plus another 8, which is a double, I know that, and another 1. So 8 plus 8 plus 1. Or even I could think about 9 plus 8 as being 10 plus 8, but take away an extra 1. Why is this way of thinking so important? We do not memorize every problem that we come across. Being flexible in our thinking allows for mental math and efficient computation of facts we do not have memorized. Let's take 247 plus 36, for example. I don't have that fact memorized. However, I can easily think of 36 as being 33 and 3. That's helpful for me because I know 247 and 3 is 250. So 250 and 33 more, well, 250 plus 33 is 283. That made it much easier for me to solve using mental math. So what is structuring? Structuring is just another way of saying composing and decomposing numbers. Those are just fancy words for putting together and taking apart numbers. When we teach students to put together and take apart numbers, we want them to think in smart ways to put them together or take them apart, ways that make sense. 3 key tools that we use when teaching students to structure numbers. These tools help build images in our students' minds. The tools that we use are our fingers, frames, 5 frames, 10 frames, 20 frames, and bead racks. These tools help students to see the structure of the numbers. I've even had students say to me, I can see my fingers in my head, or I can see the beads in my head as they're working with bare number tasks later. Sometimes we tend to discourage students from using their fingers, when in reality, using their fingers in the correct way can help them to structure numbers. For example, here, my question might have been, show me 8, and the student holds up 5 and 3, or holds up 8 fingers. We're watching to see if they're counting each finger as they're holding them up. Eventually, we want them to just be able to flash the 8 fingers. A good question to ask now is, can you tell me 2 numbers that go together to make 8? They should tell you 5 and 3. You may want to say, can you show me 8 another way, to see if they can hold up their fingers to show you 4 and 4. And another question to ask would be, if I had 8, how many more would I need to get to 10? When looking at your hands, if I'm showing 8, The how many more to get to 10 are the fingers that are down. Those are all visual images that will help students to learn the facts quicker. Showing students 5 frames or 10 frames also helps to build fluency. When you use these, you're going to want to show them to your child very quickly and then hide them. So just a second or two for them to look at it and then hide it. So this first one with the 5 frames or the 5 squares, you might flash it to them and ask, how many dots did you see? And when they respond to, the next question would be, well, if I saw 2, how many more would I need to get to 5? Or how many were empty? 3. So then we're working on the fact 2 and 3 make 5. With the 10 frame, you might ask, how many dots did you see on the top? 5. How many dots did you see on the bottom? 1. How many is that all together? 6. Good. If you saw 6, how many were empty? 4. Can you tell me a fact about 6 and 4? Well, 6 and 4 go together to make 10. So you're building fluency up to 10. In school, we also use bead racks, similar to the way that we use the frames with the students. We're going to show them a certain number of beads, and that structure of 5 is within there, so everything builds off of knowing combinations up to 5 and then combinations up to 10. So we show them so many beads, we ask them, cover it up, ask them how many they saw, how many more to get to 10, how many more to get to 20. Depending on how you present it, you could be looking at doubles, you could be looking at 5 plus facts. The important thing to keep in mind when you're looking at these is the order in which we learn our facts. So we really work on structuring to 5 first, one hand facts, because from there we build on to structuring to 10, and that's understanding my 5s and some more. And when I use both hands for making my 10s, it builds off of my understanding of 5. Then we build to 20s, and from there we can go to 100 and beyond. So our focus with really young children, kindergarten and below, is up to 5, structuring to 5, really learning our facts to 5 and visualizing those facts. From there, in first grade, we work on structuring to 10, and in second grade, we structure to 20, and then in third grade and beyond, we are structuring to 100 and beyond. Some ways at home to support this idea of structuring would be to ask your children to show you on their fingers certain quantities. Ask them to show it to you in a different way. Ask them to think about those quantities that they would see on their fingers without actually showing them to you. Think about the number 8. What would the number 8 look like on my fingers? Could I make the number 8 in a different way? What about the number 7? How can I make the number 7 on my fingers? Different ways to make the number. Also, when they're looking at a fact or trying to figure out a fact, is there part of it that you know? So, for example, I might be adding together 6 and 5. Well, I know 5 and 5 is 10 because that's my 2 hands, and 6 would be another 1, so that would make it 11. So not just memorizing the fact for the fact in isolation, but thinking about how those numbers relate to one another. One final piece of information. Although we discourage the use of flashcards when students start learning their facts, after they've built those mental images in their head and they've worked with the images for a while, it is okay to break out those flashcards and ask your students to work on their fluency with those. Just keep in mind that if you are going to use them, our focus, or the focus for the child, should not be on just the memorized fact, but thinking about the parts that they know within those problems. And if they do struggle with the fact, to ask them to flash their fingers at you or to show you what that might look like, or to think about that within a 10 frame so that you're always going back to those visuals.